How's it going, ScrubGamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today it might be a bit late, but we're going to go over the ban list update for set 2021 and kind of go over it a little bit, discuss it with the benefits and losses that it brought. Because if you don't remember, there were 5 bans and 1 errata. Well, there was a ton of erratas, but there was only 1 errata that wasn't just fixing the issues of a set that shouldn't have been made in the first place, really, because Bandai didn't like to check the quality of their cards before printing. But yeah, there was a fair few, and it also really changed the ban list up because it hit two decks that were busted since release, and one that was just got even more support, with just Floodgate being Gamma. And then there were 2 other bans. One that wasn't really needed, but they hit it, and another one of just getting rid of a card because of the future. Like the first time I've ever seen Bandai actually hit something due to an upcoming card and actually follow up on it, that the card actually makes a difference. But before we get into that, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Keeps you updated with my videos as when they drop, and if you hit the notification bell, you get alerts when my videos do drop as well, so you get to go and see them straight away, or be known that they're about to watch later. And we're on our way to 1,000 subs, hoping to get there by the end of the year. And we're almost rocking up to 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way there, which is great. And we got a giveaway going on as well, as a thank you to the people that subscribed. So if you do want to join into that, go check it out. Otherwise, let's continue with the video and check out the benefits and losses of the ban list. So we're going to start off with the first one. First ban, probably one of the biggest ones, and that is the ban of Zenoh. So we'll start with the benefits. So one of the big benefits is that it allows other red decks to shine without being in the shadow, because it's one big thing about the 2 red decks that were released at set 18, is that they were so powerful, so overpowered, that no other red deck was worth playing or even had a chance to really compete when you had these two about. Because the thing with some colors is that when you get different things in the different colors. Well, you get red and blue. Well, not red and blue, yellow and blue, which are more about. There's one lead that's the best generic leader for that, with all the generic cards in, and then you get decks like red and green, which the better archetypes carry the color. And for red, it was what's the point in playing any other red deck if it doesn't do anything different or better than Sin and SS4 Gogeta did? And that was the problem with the decks, is that they just overshadowed all the other red decks, where there was no point even running the decks when you could run those 2. Just before it, we got the set 2 Vegito, got support in a Z lead and Z battle card that actually brought it up from being absolutely trash to actually being very, very strong. But the problem is it didn't do anything stronger than these 2 decks, so there's no point playing with those 2 around, even though people like myself would try. And that was one of the big things. And also, it won't be another benefit, a big benefit that I find more red than any other color, is that it won't be carrying players for events anymore. We saw since 18, people topping that literally just got carried because of the deck, not because of how great they are at the game or anything like that. Just saw people get carried by these decks because they didn't require much full or sequencing. It was just throw cards down, turn them sideways. And this deck was a big one, just being people just being as aggressive, not caring about their hands or anything, and getting rewarded for it because of just how powerful the deck was. That won't be the case anymore. People have to actually think about, or it's I know people will jump ship from this deck, and go into another red deck. Probably go to Polku or a different red deck. I've seen people jump into Pan already because they just want decks that just carry them. But this one was, ridiculously strong, and just allowed the carry people that literally just didn't want to think about how to take the turns to sequence properly or improve. So that'll be a good thing now. So you should see more people actually topping that, actually putting the effort with the decks, not just playing the strongest, most overpowered deck. And the last one is no more losing the die roll and being taken out after only having literally 1 turn. Now, one of the most powerful things about this deck was that if it goes first, you can just put a lot of pressure on very, very early, very, very cheaply, and very quickly. I experienced it before, where after having 1 turn, their turn 2, after turn 1 of playing the Go Home promo, they're able to, in the next turn, swing that one with a 20k double strike. The 4-drop Sin is 20k double strike. The leader is just a 15k swing that draws a card, and then rush attack to get 2 swings out of it, one being 20k single, another one being 30k double. Like all that pressure, while you've only had 1 turn and 1 energy, and 1 energy to really use to defend yourself, which unless you're blue, you're not really getting more use out of that energy. You're using that 1 energy unless you've got a floodgate or anything like that. It's just ridiculous. And having that just so early, like it's not to say that decks can be aggressive or we can't have aggro decks. It's just when you got them as that oppressive for that cheap, when you've only had 1 turn like that, like with also not losing any hand because most of them play like the 4-drops in draws, the to replace itself, the leader draws to kind of like give you an extra card, and also you can just in this deck you can jot down super combos really early to not actually put more pressure on when not losing in hand, and like this GSC battle card being live for its full effect very easily in this deck to get both effects and not even being anything used from your hand was just ridiculous. It's like having all that gone is a great benefit of the list, but there are some losses to go over as well. So they might not seem the main losses, but with this deck, Red Unison Hate was mainly in this deck, which is no longer around. Like Red Unison Hate, Red doesn't have much of it. Like you minus Unison's down, but unless your minus is down to 0, like consistently, you're not really doing much to it. And there's not many cards outside of this deck that minus Unison's down that are quite cheap and cost effective. So Red doesn't really have any more with loss of this deck. Like great and easy ways outside of like Black Smoke, things like that, to actually hate on Unisons, which is a shame. It is also the most consistent aggro deck, so it potentially makes the format a little bit slower, which is nice. But then if it gets too that's what we've gone back and forth a bit, where like if you have a very good aggro deck, it keeps the format being quite quick, quite easy, quite good with time. But then when those aggro decks are done or neutered, we then go into a slower format, which then brings about people going constantly into time and like using the time rules to try and win. And also one very negative thing about this is which I really don't like is that a lot of the deck that only works with this specific leader basically also ended up on the ban list as well, which is a shame. It is good to hit the problem, which was the whole deck in itself, but then there are some cards in there that essentially have been banned because they only work with this leader or don't really work outside of the deck. And even then, you get things like the promo Sin, that's in the TP that was for the last set 20, and that's now a dead pool. So if you pull that, you can actually get nothing. It's like almost you didn't get a TP because it only works with this lead, and it's useless now. So that's some of the losses. Just to start off with like an understanding of like what the benefits of some things are and what it actually losses some of these hits. So that is the Red Sin. Then we move on to the next one because remember there are 5 cards banned, and we have the SS4 the SS4 Goku and Vegeta leader, which is basically normally dubbed as SS4 Gogeta. Now there's gonna have similar benefits to similar benefits to Sin, with once again other red decks can now shine without being in its shadow because it's a suppressive deck, having a huge hand size and put a lot of pressure and dropping a lot of Z energy to make use of the Z deck quite well as well. So it just seemed very weird. Like it makes sense at the beginning of a set to like release stuff to support the mechanic, like we saw with Unison Warriors series, where they had these very strong generic unisons and very good support, like out the free counter plays and the extra cards to support them to kind of push them, which made sense. But in the first set of Zenkai series, like not all decks or all colors were given equal promotion of the mechanic. Like Red got like an overly busted way to generate Z energy to make use of their cards, and other decks really didn't. Some decks got a good way to generate Z energy quite nicely, but not all colors actually got some good generic Z cards. Like green and black got like shafted on that. Yellow got some good ones, blue got some really good ones, and red got some really good ones as well. But there wasn't enough equality in the Z deck for this series, which is a weird one considering how generic and good the beginning of the Warrior series was with all colors. Well, apart from Black, but Black didn't really hit his stride until that series as well. And also, once again, won't be carrying players through the events anymore because both those decks, both Sin and Gogeta, basically carried players where they didn't have to actually think or know how to sequence properly, like be decent in the game. They just had to play this deck, and this would win games for you. The amount of times I've seen people win games where they shouldn't have, just because they had this deck or a Sin deck, and it just carried them just due to overwhelming power that deck can put, like the cards can pull off. You don't have to sequence; they can still mess up and still bring out wins for them as well. And there's no more also losing your entire board to an uninteractable boss card. Like, things like that. If they're a secret rare, makes sense because you can only have one secret rare into your entire deck. You have to find it. Like like the Android 21 deck, it has that secret rare that takes your entire board and unison, puts on if you know it heals life, but they can only use that once because once it's played and gone from removed from the field, it's gone from the game, and they have to still draw into it, and it's a one-time use in the game. You have to worry about that. But for this deck, it had an 8-drop that just comes down. You can't interact with it before it comes down because it has deflect. As soon as it hits the board, it's unaffected by anything that's not its character, which was near enough nothing. And then it just goes ahead and just smashes your entire board, no matter what position it is, and then hits you for like a 35k triple that you don't have to combat off because you can't stop the attack or do anything with it. Something that interactive should only be in relation to a secret rare. They can only use one of, and then with one and done. But this deck had a potential to run 4 of them and do it consistently. And when it first came out as well, there's no real way to kind of, you could do things to preemptively stop it before they try to pull it off, but then they just do other things which they can do as aggressively, and you just wasted time trying to stop something that they're not even going to bother doing. And there's only one color, being blue, that actually had a trap, being Dirty Purse, that actually trapped people into playing it, which at the beginning of the format caught a lot of people off, but then as it became more popular, then yeah, more people will know about that. Like, when only one color has a answer to one of the most ridiculous cards ever, it's not good. Like, I don't know why it was signed off of, but it just seems like Bandai didn't really check things beforehand. But still, it's gone now, so you have to worry about it. But as well, with benefits comes losses, and we got the losses for this deck. So the strength of cards like Rush Attack and Gohan TP is reduced. Without decks like this one that actually ramps the energy. Like, these are really, like, Rush Attack and the Gohan TP are really powerful cards. But without decks like these two actually ramps the energy quickly, then they're not as actually powerful. Like, with these two decks, that generates the energy very, very easily, very cheaply, and very quickly, then those cards were just insane and busted. Like, being able to get the Rush Attack out like as early as turn 2, be able to get the full use of it was amazing. And Gohan TP having that life in turn 1, 2 was just ridiculous. Now, the power of those cards is gone down, so that's technically a loss. The power of those cards is reduced because you can't actually pull them off as easily and quickly in the actually remaining red decks. And also the deck felt pretty interesting as well. So if it wasn't for the boss card and the generic promos like Broly and Gohan and stuff like that, this deck actually seemed like it could be quite a fun niche deck. Like, the main problems with this deck felt like the boss card just being able to have that drop down was just way too powerful. If it didn't have that, it seemed like a fair red deck. I can generate lots of energy and red Vegetas, but then that's not too bad because it's just 2 costs, and also you're not having it wipe your entire board and push damage. Like that, you're bringing out with the Z deck, like Vegetas, they're actually interactable, whereas the Gogeta was like you couldn't interact with it at all outside of things like Dirty Burst. And like generic promos, like just giving like very generic promos that could be used with anything and that was just as powerful as Golden and Broly was just a bit ridiculous. So I felt like if it wasn't for those, like the boss card mainly, and like some insanely overpowered generic promos, this deck could have been alright, could be fine, but yeah, it had to go because there's no way to get rid of those cards. Especially with some of them like brand new, they didn't like hitting cards that just come out. Like, even when the first time they hit red, they hit all the generic stuff that worked for all the other red decks, but didn't touch any of the core issues with the decks because they were brand new. And then the last one is, once again, just like Sin, little deck that only works with this leader, basically also ended up on the ban list, which is a shame. So some of the cards that are locked to have needing this leader are now dead because, and like essentially banned because this leader's gone. I don't see them printing out a new leader similar so they can be used. They're just going to leave it. so that's a shame when that happens. So that's for those two leaders. And then we have the third leader. We have Gamma. So Gamma was the other leader they banned because it was just Floodgate, and that's it. Like the fact you can just spend all your energy in your turn, then at the end of your turn draw a card, get free energy back, then Floodgate your opponent, and then do it again just over and over. Just basically make full use of your turn, but then basically end your opponent's turn very quickly. Floodgates that you could just pay for cheap. It was just ridiculous, and while it wasn't too difficult to take down, it was very easy to take down. Like you had Black Smoke to just take out the Unison and not worry too much about some things, and then have like as long as you built your deck to like deal with it easy enough, but still having to deal with that like even in casual play was a bit ridiculous. And people, even though they like to go to locals and play for fun, people like to bring decks like this as a fun deck because there are those kinds of players. And the benefits are now that other blue decks can actually come out and play again. Like there isn't many blue decks that actually do very well. Like it's normally, as I said, a blue is a color where it's more the best generic leader with the best generic stuff. But then it's come with a few cards that are generic. Like at the moment, the main way to play blue is to combine it with green and play it that way. Like blue and green haven't really done much on their own. They've been more been combining themselves together to actually put in results that we've seen with Enter 21 and things like that. And also, once again, it's a never deck that won't be carrying players through events anymore, because no longer can a player just rock up and just slap this down, slap down Unison, perform their turn, get back and just go, oh, Floodgate. No more will people be carried by this. There are players that do very well, like you got Jared in the US that's been doing very well recently with the past few months of regionals with this deck. You had Ollie, Big O Notation, doing very well Worlds with it. Like you take it as a solid pick to counter out the meta. And you have players that do play very well with it, but the majority of players are like not as skillful as players like that, and they just get carried by decks like this. It just doesn't feel great when someone just gets carried by the deck, not by the actual skill of playing. And also, no more being floodgated over and over by players looking to win via time. But then again, we'll get to losses of where it's not really like there is a benefit, but then it's not truly gone. Because then we have the losses to Gamma being gone, and losses. First one is Gamma players are just going to move on to the new Android 21 and get carried by that deck, because it does almost the same thing, but it allows you to use your opponent's cards as energy and just have some like floodgates that are quite hard to interact with, especially when one's a 4-cost floodgate. That's 21k power or 22k power. That's also double strike, which is very hard to stop given the cost and the power. And also has a very, very powerful secret rare as well, just to clear your board if you try to establish one. So yeah, imagine a lot of Gamma players will just jump to that deck to then get carried by that. And Expert 21 also, one of the losses is that Expert 21 requires a benefit of sequencing, so will be picked up and dropped. So that's one thing I feel like I did put as a loss, because I reckon like people are going to pick up Android 21, Expert 21 after seeing people do so well with it. Like once again, Big O Notation doing very well, taking back-to-back events at the UKGE, taking both the Zenkai Cup and the regional one day to the next. And people will probably do like pick up that deck, think, like seeing how strong it is, play it then, but then after seeing how hard you have to sequence it, how much you have to like invest in it to learn the sequencing and how to play it properly, as long as you're not playing the lookout one. That's a terrible list. They're gonna just give up with that and just drop it as well, and just go on to the new Enter 21 instead, which I find is gonna be, I don't know why I put it as lost now. But then also once again, it's also like with the other two leaders, the other loss is that a lot of the deck that only works with this leader basically also know the ban list, which is a shame. So having cards, like given it's an old set, and like set 17, like almost a year old, I think. Or is it a year old? Almost a year old. One of them. It's a shame that cards get banned due to the leader and stuff like that. Like it is a shame that happens. But having issues like this out the format is like the price to pay for it, really. But that is the three of them. So that's 3 of the bans. Then we have some of the ones that aren't leaders. So the first one being the SS4 Gogeta Triumph Together. And I imagine a lot of people were looking at this thinking, why is this banned if the leader's banned? Because without the leader, you can't really make it so it can do whatever it wants. Like it doesn't get the full benefit like it would the leader. But the benefits being banned is that well, first one, like I just said, it didn't really matter since SS4 was banned. But then it's the first actual, well, if I can remember correctly, it's the first actual hit that made sense from Bandai due to upcoming new cards. Like, I know Bandai have had that like reason before where like they've banned certain cards due to upcoming cards or cards coming out in future, and that being a problem. Like a lot of the time when they say that, it's just because they have no other reason why, like like a proper reason, just because players want it banned. Or they've seen like it's been doing really well. They haven't had like a good reason to ban it. They just gone ahead banned it and given it as a reason. But at least this one made sense because with the upcoming Shenron secret rare, you can actually play this from the drop for free and have it just swing your opponent's leader, and they can't counterplay it or like negate it or anything. They have to just try and combat with it. And yeah, it's just a ridiculous card because like with the first point, the third point is that it should never have been made in the first place. Really, like no other card has really been on this level of a boss card. No, nothing's been this ridiculous. Like sure, we've had the Gogeta 7, Gogeta Hero Revived, which could come down, can't be interacted with because it had barrier and deflect, and then it just came down, took a life, and then made your opponent shuffle their entire hand back into the deck to then draw 3 random cards. Like that in combination with some other cards stuff were ridiculous, but just on its own it was just ridiculous to do that, making it so your opponent had to rely on luck of what they drew to see if they could defend. But then they didn't lose their board or anything like this, could just wipe out your board and push through a damage, which if you've got enough combo power, like some decks have had like decks that have reliance on like extra cards and units and stuff like that, had a problem with dealing with it because they wouldn't be able to use any of those effects to try and make use of the cards like it would normally do, as a run actually drawing battle cards to combo out. So it's ridiculous. And also with there was a deck that we have featured on the channel before. That was a Shenron with the black Shenron from the starter deck. Being able to have this out, use the card that resets the board and hand 5 cards in hand and just the 2 cards you chose on board. And this wouldn't be affected by that, meaning you can reduce your opponent's hand to 5, clear the board, and also just swing with this and hope your opponent didn't have enough combo power to outcombo this swing, which was going to be fun, but yeah, it would have been a bit stupid, so not an issue now, this is gone. And now you're thinking, what are the losses to this card being banned, considering the benefits? And that is none. There's no loss to having this card banned. It's a fucking ridiculous card, and I'm glad it's gone. Like, I was looking forward to use it with the Shenron deck to try out something fun, but yeah, I'm just glad that it's gone because it's just a fucking stupid card. So we then move on to the last card that was banned, and that was Dirty Burst. So this is the only one from the bans that actually was questionable. Like, why was this banned? They give you a reason about how like it just stops, like the fact that like one color has this card that just stops boss monsters from being played, and how the majority of boss monsters are like 8 drops and stuff like that, like 7 or 8 drops. Just means that you didn't get the full use of your card, so they've got rid of it. So now you don't have to, no color or blue and whatever color text blue doesn't have the power to just go, you played your boss card, it can't do anything, you've just wasted playing that. Now people have to just find different ways to kind of deal with it, or just take it head on. But the benefits to this card being banned is that no more wasting energy to play a boss card. No longer can you do you invest in playing a boss card, and the opponent just use 2 energy to replace the card in hand and go, yeah, you can't actually attack me or do anything bad to me with that boss card now. So that was the only thing. Like, just having this as a trap to make your opponent invest energy into playing their boss card and then making it so they can't really actually do anything with it was a shame, but now it's no longer a thing. And it is a questionable hit, but does make sense as only blue gets access to something like this. No other color has access to something like this, which can't be really interacted with. That then stops like a boss card being played. Like, no other color is this that can actually lure your opponent into investing in it and then stopping it. Most of the time, the other colors have a way to preemptively do it. Say you can't do it with this on your next turn, but then at least that allows them to do it. Like, find other ways to do something else strong instead of being trapped into it. So that's one good thing about it. And then lastly, it's not the first time Bandai hit something that was good, but not a problem. Like, we've seen other cards that were not a problem. Bandai decided to hit them anyway for other reasons because Bandai don't really pay attention to the format. And then the losses of this card is that blue and decks that play blue no longer have a trap for most boss cards. They've got really nothing to really deal with it anymore. And the reign of boss cards is now upon us with this god, so no longer being worried about if you want to put a boss card in your deck or play a boss card. Now they're welcome to roam free and then run into floodgates now. So that's one nice little thing. Then we move on to the last card, so then we move on to the one card that got Errata'd, and that was Zenoh. So there's only one benefit for Zenoh, and that is that no more cheap and insane hate towards God and Universe decks. Because this was a weird one, because they released it in the TPs, and I thought that's pretty strong. Like, just if you're playing I imagine a lot of people, like we see in the on the groups, is that they saw that the fact that it comes down and just removes any God or Universe cards on the board from the game, ignoring Indestructible and Barrier, and then removed from the game, not just warped or drop, removed from the game so they're no longer actually able to be accessed. And that was ridiculous, especially for one energy, so you get a turn free. So a lot of people looked at it and went, oh yeah, yellow Zamasu's like dead now on arrival because of this card. Wasn't really. Universe decks like U7 and everything's like that, just dead on arrival. Not really. And it just made no sense, like just to have something this powerful against two like niche traits. I would say niche traits because not often you see God or Universe decks. And then they released the Goku Black deck, which had Zamasu stuff, gods, and like Zamasu and Goku Black being classified as God or Universe card. And releasing that with this card beforehand to just say like that starter deck is worthless getting, because if it ever gets popular, this card comes in and just ruins it. So it was an odd card to print. A very pretty cool card though, but it just made it look like the Goku Black deck was pointless being run, because it wasn't a strong deck anyway. The Goku Black deck, it is a pretty shit deck. But then this card made it worse, where if it ever came to being decent, this card come in a Runa Day. So there are some losses now to the Errata'd, because the Errata'd was made to make it so instead of choosing up to 12 cards, you have to choose exactly 12 cards. And no one's getting 12 Gods of the Universe on the board. If they are, congratulations, you just won the board and probably did nothing. Whereas now you can't choose up to 12 cards and like manage it. So they basically killed this card with a pointless Errata'd. So the losses of this is that you might as well have been banned, as the Errata'd basically makes it useless, because no one's going to get 12 Gods and like 12 battle cards in the field with God and Universe in their special traits. No one's going to do that. So it's all to us pointless. And being just a 1-drop, what's it, a 5-cost, 5k power guy that you can drop for 1 is useless. Like, it's going to make people feel bad as putting it as a winner TP with the Errata'd, because the nice thing about the winners was that you pull it and you think, oh, this is a good card, I can use this or I can make use of it, which you could with most of them. But now pulling this just makes like just chuck it in the bin. It's pointless. But there's one benefit, well, kind of one thing, is that it still has a use in Great Priest, but then who plays Great Priest? I've never seen anyone actually try Great Priest. I do want to try it because it does seem fun, but I've still not really seen anybody really use Great Priest. I know it's like a niche janky deck with a burn, but that's probably the only use this card has anymore, which is a shame. But that comes to the end of it. So that is the benefits and losses of the ban list. Like, the format is looking a lot nicer now. Well, I know people were moaning that like yellow didn't get hit, stuff like that. But then if you look at it, nothing from yellow needed hitting. While people think Mecha Freezer, Robotic Riposte is a problem, it's a fucking floodgate. Like, every color's got a floodgate and stuff. So is not a problem having that card in yellow. Like, it wasn't ban worthy. And other cards like the cooler counter is not ban worthy, because especially when the cards that it wants to hit only cost 1 energy, you're paying 3 energy to hit one cost card, is not as powerful as people make out to be. Like, and most of the cards that were being used in yellow that were an issue are brand new cards which are not going to hit. They're not going to hit cards after just releasing them. So yeah, but the format looks to be a lot more interesting, a lot more open, less dominated by ridiculous kit decks that just carry players. It should be a bit more skillful and more interesting now. So yeah, that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.